Let me share my screen once again. Someone confirm, like, whether they are able to see my screen?
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay, okay. So sorry for the minor technical glitches. Let's start. So hope, like, our people, like, who were there in the initial session when I was just talking about the medical affairs, the introduction, are also here. And I'm sure, like, Dr. Ronak would have taken sessions on the role of MSL in detail. So, like, since I can't see you while I'm presenting, if you have any query, I will, like, request, like, just park it, like, towards the end of the session. We can cover it one by one. Okay. So here I will start. So today's topic would be role of medical affairs in evidence generation and clinical trial support. And this particular session is like quite close to my heart because right now I primarily like is more focused towards the clinical trial support in with my present role. So here I won't focus much of a time, but as you can see in the screen, we had discussed this in detail as well. So just to differentiate between, the medical affairs serves as a scientific bridge between internal teams and external stakeholders, and they offer their support throughout the product life cycle. So that means the whoever works for medical affairs, the medical affairs team provides independent scientific expertise that extend beyond regulatory approval, and I mean that predates, like, even the clinical development sometimes, and ensure, like, all the stakeholder interactions are grounded in evidence-based medicine. Now, quickly, a recap. This also we had discussed. The role of medical affairs is evolving from a traditional one, which was primarily focused on supporting after, like, the medicine has been approved in that country or respective territory, just which provided reactive informations whenever there was a query from HCPs. Then, the medical affairs used to support some of the publication planning, etc. From there, it has turned out. It's a complete turnaround, I would say. Like, right now, medical affairs is engaged in early involvement with the clinical development initiatives. They support real world evidence generation. They engage various patient advocacy groups. Then again, like, they are considered a strategic partner for all other departments which work in a pharmaceutical organization. So this slide, so today's focus is more towards the drug development or the clinical research. So I would say, like, this slide summarizes key activities where medical affairs is involved in the drug development phase. Say when we talk about preclinical or phase one, you could see, like, the medical affairs is increasingly being involved. They primarily, like, engage with some of the top key medical experts of that territory to understand more about. So they liaise with the internal, like, the research market research team to understand, like, the opportunities which lies in their product, and accordingly these early KOL engagements help in what is called, like, or to better understand the landscape of that particular territory and how the drug fits in well, and just to uncover the unmet needs in that therapy area, etc. Now, again, like, the medical affairs is increasingly involved to design and shape the protocols. So they offer a lot of clinical trial design input. Again, the endpoint selection advice is being offered, and again this is primarily the result of the engagement with multiple experts working in that domain. So many a times, even after the draft protocol is ready, with these insights what is coming from the territory with the therapy area experts, that can, like, change the endpoints of the trials itself. So those discussions prior to the protocol finalization would be key. Otherwise, it could turn out to be a very costly affair, because with the wrong endpoints, with the wrong decisions, like your protocol once the trial starts may be subjected to a series of amendments. So having the right input and right advice early would significantly help. Similar way, the investigator relationship building, again, the organizations rely on the medical affairs, because whenever you need to build a relationship, that's based on the peer-to-peer relationship someone can have from that organization with the therapy area expert. So there again, medical affairs is being increasingly utilized. So once the protocol is ready, once you have planned to initiate the trial, etc., obviously the next step would be the regulatory review or a regulatory submission process. So here you can understand, like, say when we talk from the India context, so when we submit, like, our trial details for further processing, it would be submitted to the CDSCO. So where, like, they might call for the subject expert committee meetings. So this basically, the subject expert committee or the panel includes expert from that particular therapy area, which primarily are coming from the premium government institutions and exceptionally uh, experienced people even from the private segments. Again, it also include basic scientists, clinical pharmacologists, etc. So you need to so you will receive a slot and you will need to present at these meetings to uh, seek the approval for your particular clinical development program. So here again, within the organization, medical affairs takes a lead along with the internal regulatory team for this regulatory review and submission process. So why a medical affairs is being required there? Because many of the queries from the subject matter experts would be based on their clinical expertise and understanding. So obviously, the people from the medical affairs background would be the right one to engage and have a meaningful and constructive uh, talk with those subject matter experts. So once the we receive approval, we will have these trials running. So there, we will have like a series of queries from the investigators who are part of the trials, which I will describe maybe in the subsequent slides also. So those are also being increasingly managed by the medical affairs. So few of the organizations here you should also understand, may have employed this some of the, like, they would have, like, actually, taken some of the expert from the internal medical affairs team and put full time to the support of the clinical development team. So they are called by the terms like clinical research medical advisors, clinical medical managers, etc. So their role is, like, actually, is to uh, to support the drug development process from the scratch till the drug is commercialized. And such team, like, which has that I mean, the bigger teams, they have the capacity to divide separately between these clinical research medical advisors and the medical affairs. The clinical research medical affairs would be primarily focusing on the early drug development, while their medical affairs team would be focusing when the drug is market ready and mm, even beyond. But you should understand, majority of the organizations still don't have this reach, so they primarily will still rely on the medical affairs only, like to do these early engagements as well as the the support throughout the life cycle of the product. Now, so let me also talk a little bit on the foundations of evidence generation. So again, I would say we need registrational evidence. That means actually, whatever the information, whatever the details you need to generate from the clinical trials, which is required for the regulatory approval of the product. Then you also have non-registrational evidence, which means you might be over the course of this clinical development, you would have also understood like maybe your products would have so many additional benefits or additional outcomes which might be benefiting the patient community at large. So you might have to like again plan for supplementary trials, studies to address those specific clinical questions, etc. You will also be again focusing on real world evidence generation, that is data from routine clinical practice outside the settings of planned mm, and controlled trials. Now, the again the methodological rigor, which means adherence to scientific standards and ethical guidance across all evidence types. So these comprises, like I would say, the found which this is like actually methodological rigor has to be observed throughout any of the process which have been highlighted. So this is where or how the evidences are generated. Now, coming to non-registrational evidence in detail, you could see like actually, it may include post hoc analysis of the clinical trial data. That means beyond the endpoints, what you were initially thinking of during the trial, you would have secured a huge amount of you have like huge wealth of data at your disposal, which you are further extrapolating to understand again, to use to support your product to flourish in the market as well as throughout its life period. Now, you might also have to focus on like actually having like actually uh, pre-registries, cohort studies, meta-analysis, systemic reviews. Then you might have to sometimes do and support some of the you might have to support some of the investigator initiated studies, etc. Now, these again non-registration evidence has like actually lot of strategic value again because it informs clinical decision making beyond label information, support health economics arguments for payers, establishes foundation of additional indications, etc. Now, coming to real world evidence in little detail, I would say like from where you source this information. So why before going to that, I will also say why you need such real world evidence. We are getting the trial results, we are getting the study details. Why again you need to go for a real world evidence or generating the clinical evidence once the product is commercialized? Because that becomes increasingly important because the trials are done in a very controlled atmosphere and even especially even country like India now, even with the government agencies, they increasingly consider this is very important. Especially with the expensive and costly medications coming in, this becomes even more important. Now the government would ask what's the experience per se from our pool of population, or what our set of medical experts think it and position, like how they position in the practice, etc. So for this and to talk about this value proposition, you might need a real world evidences to be generated. So in certain countries nowadays, regulatory bodies have also been increasingly accepting these real world evidence studies to uh, mm, approve some of the indications as well. Now, coming to the data sources from where these are sourced, that includes electronic health records, disease and product registries, insurance claim databases, patient reported outcome studies, digital health applications. So, digital health applications, like, this is something very interesting. I will give you an example. So, recently, I met a team uh, who was like actually trying to develop a smartwatch which can actually record a lot of patient parameters. And I saw them like approaching hospitals in various tier 1 cities or the bigger cities, and offering their watches at like free of cost. Like the watch like is like similar to some the electronic watch you get these days, so which could read some of the basic health parameters, and can also remind you on certain set parameters. So I was like more confused. This watch could cost something between like 10 to 20,000 in our monetary value, but they were offering it free of charge. Then the idea, like I spoke to one of the representative from the organization who was doing this, who explained me like though the watches what they are distributing is expensive, but what is more valuable is like if they can pull in the data, because they are all these patients who are using this watch, they have taken the consent to share the data. So once they have the data, they could approach multiple stakeholders who might benefit from these data. So the real wealth would be the real value would be the data what it offers, like actually in a bigger cohort. So that's how digital health applications are also being increasingly used to generate real world evidences. So the clinical applications, obviously, it can validate effectiveness in diverse populations, identify rare safety signals, what we miss in the routine clinical trials, evaluates treatment pattern and adherence, establishes comparative effectiveness, etc. The list might be little longer, but I would say like these are something which are very important in nature. Now, mm, again identifying evidence gaps and setting priorities. Again, medical affairs would also focus uh, on conducting advisory boards, etc., to generate insights from that segment. And again, they uh, consult the patient advocacy groups. So this is being increased day by day. Earlier, we used to hear about patient advocacy group only with some of the Western countries. So these days, even for uh, uh, cardiovascular diseases, many of the rare diseases, oncology segments, we have a lot of patient advocacy groups working. So that might also help to understand like a lot of, plenty of information like about the patient needs, unmet needs, the challenges, what they have to endure in their day-to-day activities, etc. Now, payer and health technology assessment body requirements. Again, sometimes in order to include your product in certain segments, say, just to give you an example, suppose I want to include my product into a government account, for example, railway or the defense, they might actually, uh, be asking like mm, what's the value proposition what you have to offer, etc. So such health technology assessment bodies, payers, etc., might also be asking for a lot of evidence generation, so which again, so this would be a driving factor for medical affairs to do many of these assessments and include it for the right value proposition. Then systematic literature reviews, competitive evidence assessment, etc. So the prioritization criteria include clinical significance and unmet need, market access and formulary implications, feasibility and resource requirements, strategic alignment with product goals, potential for guideline inclusion, etc. So here are like actually, as a medical affairs team member, uh, they would be focusing to get an entry as well as like subsequent support to these products. So coming back specific to trial design and feasibility. So, I had discussed this in brief, but so medical affairs critically and contribute to the clinically relevant endpoint selection to have appropriate comparative recommendations. Uh, Again, this is quite important. Okay, whenever you as a requirement, uh, maybe the initial, like if you are a front runner, you might be actually to comparing your product versus placebo, but then like actually obviously as the market is crowded, you will be comparing with the standard of care. So it will also be very important, like you need to study in depth about the competitors currently, like actually in this segment where you might be entering. Then they might have a big time challenging task, I would say, like to have to set the right, to include the right set of patients into the trial. So I mean the inclusion exclusion criteria are etc are of course like actually the suggestions will go from the medical affairs. Then we this, as I told, no, this patient advocacy groups are getting an increasing role. Similar way, patient voice within the clinical trials are also increasing. So we these days you could see many of the trials will of course having like lot of patient centric elements, including multiple patient reported outcome measures, etc. Now, coming to the feasibility enhancement strategies, again, like selecting the right site would be important. Again, the medical affairs will have a critical role to review the sites to understand their capability, etc. Then again, managing stakeholders is a very, very difficult task, which medical affairs people have mastered over a period of time. So they are the right ones to manage the relationships like the to be the right query resolution partner or scientific support partner to these investigators. Again, we will also, while the study is about to start, we should also like by discussing with the external experts, we should understand the burden of protocol. Is it really doable or not? How tough is it? How challenging it is? Because certain trials I have noticed, like see our patient population might be very different from the Caucasian population pool. So many of those set criterias which would have come from some of the global experts may not be right for our patients. So to understand these things early, and sometimes even to decide like not to be part of the trial from an India perspective would also be important. So that might save lot of money. Uh, 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 I mean, going forward, and certain studies, I can. I'm not. I'm just giving you an example, like which sometimes have an endpoint, like after the trial has been completed, when they were analyzing for that particular study, the when they analyzed separately the India cohort, they identified that was pulling down the results. So that so such scenarios could be reduced or like actually minimized if medical affairs can uh, get into mm, serious discussions with the therapy area experts. So and increasingly like the medical affairs used to propose to include these experts into the trial committees, etc. Now they will also do the competitive trial landscape analysis, and they could also uh, provide valuable information in terms of recruitment potential from that particular zone or geography. Now, specifically into stakeholder engagement in trials. So, who are all these stakeholders? The most important, I would say, are like whenever before start of the trial, the most important stakeholder would be the key opinion leaders. Early consultation on protocol design, endpoint selection, scientific position, etc., will save lot of pain, and again, like will help you to complete the trial on time. The other stakeholders, when the study is starting, like it would be the site investigators who are the most important stakeholders. So in order to ensure the patients are recruited timely, the patients are retained into these long duration trials, relationship building becomes very critical. So you also will need to focus a lot on site investigators. Patient advocacy groups, I already discussed, healthcare providers, academic institutions are the other stakeholders while you are engaging. And again, you might have to offer support in terms of medical information, uh, primarily like by responding to medical inquiries from investigators and site staffs, also by providing scientific rationale for the protocol elements, why this is there in the inclusion criteria, and why it's an exclusion criteria, and so on. And again, many a times, medical affairs increasingly contribute by developing investigator educational materials, etc. Scientific dissemination through publication, planning and management, conference presentation and coordination, development of scientific platforms are also important. And most importantly, medical affairs also are involved in the cross-functional team, scientific training, primarily the clinical operation teams, etc. The interpretation of emerging data, competitive landscape assessments will help to place the drug better. Regulatory HTA support I discussed, so not going much in detail. And again, post-marketing evidence generation and life cycle management is uh, like this is, I would say, like the majority or the major work of the medical affairs, because they are the ones who plan the post-marketing study types, like as a drug is in the market, like how further uh, use the uh, drug to the maximum benefits. Uh, so, like just to give you an example, mm, say a drug is approved in market for hemophilia. So the same drug you might find like actually can be used in postpartum hemorrhage. So that could be, you could plan a post-marketing post-marketing study just to seek an additional indication approval for a severe postpartum hemorrhage, etc. So those things are planned, and that will enhance the life cycle of, I mean, the duration of the drug in the market as well. And again, it might be a requirement to study long-term safety and effectiveness. For that, actually, like we employ several registries, etc. So then they might also plan for observational comparative effectiveness studies, health economics and outcome research, patient reported outcome measures, etc. So this helps in label expansion and new indication support, guideline inclusion, evidence generation, risk management plan implementation, formulary retention, and market access defense, etc. Differentiation from newer competitors, especially when you go for a tender process, etc. To differentiate your product based on value would be critical. So to conclude, medical affairs like they drive this evidence generation. So I would say, like by the time evidence leadership, and that they do by, like with thorough planning, which spans from early drug development to post marketing, ensuring all stakeholder needs are addressed with scientific rigor. So again, one important component would be scientific integrity, as the scientific conscience of the organization. Medical affairs ensures decisions and communications prioritize patient benefit and medical accuracy. Stakeholder connection is another important pillar. Medical affairs does this by building trusted relationship with healthcare providers, payers, patient advocacy groups, etc. So these helps medical affairs to translate clinical data into meaningful healthcare improvements and helping the pharmaceutical industry to have the best benefit out of their marketed products. So medical affairs with this has evolved into strategic function that drives evidence generation across product life cycle, ensuring scientific integrity while connecting clinical development to real world patient outcomes. So they are there in the from the very early phases to the late stage real world evidence generation. So with this, I summarize my presentation. If you have any queries, you may unmute and ask me. I will just stop sharing my screen. Yeah, I can see Dr. Dimby raising hand. Please go ahead. Dimby, you can unmute yourself and ask. If not, you can put it in the chat as well in case any challenges we are facing.
Hello, sir. Good evening. My good name is Preetham.
Yeah, so Dimpi, I'm just like, you can
Sorry,
ask once you are
have I
able
done
to.
it wrong?
Yeah, so Preetham, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, as the example you cited about that medical application uh, they are giving the free things, free variables to the patients. In
Yes.
that, it was curiosity, just
Yeah.
because in that
Yeah.
how the data privacy is being taken care of.
Yeah, that's what actually, so they sought the consent of the patients uh,
Hmm.
who are ready to disclose these data, because
Okay.
for them, like actually, getting a watch with all these benefits attracted them, but
Mhm.
indirectly they are not, like, I don't know, like actually to what extent this patient community is aware, like actually, whether for what all purpose the data is being used for. Obviously, like, we all know, like, everyone will not be spending time to read and understand all those uh, big lengthy disclosures. So
Mhm.
sometimes they might have fallen victim to that as well, but still I would say, like, these wearable devices could generate lot of data. And from
Mhm.
within the trial purview, I would say we also use so many watch pads and similar e-diaries, etc. Of course, like that we take with, like, which is the consent is taken as part of, like, the routine audio visual consents. So that's also being used to generate these data.
Okay. So, in your experience,
Hmm.
as you're telling that variables are used, definitely variables are very much important parameter today in the medical world. But the thing
Yeah.
is that if you're taking a wearable,
Hmm.
the, what is the frequency of data? Say, for example, if I'm wearing a wearable, as per
Hmm.
my, if I'm wearing a smartwatch,
Hmm.
each time my things are going as creating as a data. I am
Yes.
telling as a perspective. So,
Yes.
what is the, if the all 24 hours the data is generated, you
Hmm.
select the data, or you just keep all the data, then do a mean out of it or something like that.
No, so that depends on the requirement. Like, for example, I can uh, give you an example, like, in mm, So recently, a similar device has been used in one of the uh, sickle cell disease clinical
Mm,
trial.
mm,
So where the patients sometimes actually these patients are remotely based, and I
mm.
mean they live in some rural villages, etc. So the challenge was like actually they used to have something called vaso-occlusive crisis. And
Okay.
one of the classic vaso-occlusive crisis is the acute pain what these patients endure. And it is also told that many of them might have a aura okay, I am going to get this pain crisis soon, etc. So
Mm,
if in that particular device there was a provision like to feed in this information, okay, if they are about to experience a pain crisis, or
mm.
actually if they anticipate okay, I have such issues, if they can just put it in the particular device, that will immediately sensitize the treating doctor. So
Okay.
who might then accordingly call the patient to do some subsequent laboratory investigations, etc. And if on a need basis, might ask the patient to get admitted at the hospital. So this is
Okay.
one aspect what it is being
Yeah,
used for.
understood. Understood. Thank
But
you, sir.
but at the back end, what happened, this will also help to understand maybe a lot from the India perspective. So how many vaso-occlusive crises on an average is happening with such patients?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's an additional information that may not be important maybe for that treating physician, but for big research firms and others like who are trying to develop, they will be like looking at these data to understand,
So it
okay,
is
yeah,
beneficial for everybody, right? For
yes,
them also
yes,
it is
yes,
beneficial.
yes,
In the
yes,
organization also who is sponsoring, they are also beneficial. And if required, the data can be shared afterwards
yeah,
with a lot of masking, and that can be used in the research purpose also. So it is
yes,
a
exactly.
beneficial way of data generation. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
I understood. Yeah.
So there was someone who raised a hand before, Dimpy or something.
I only raised the hand, but then after asking questions, I just
Yeah.
do it.
No, there was someone else. I
Hello,
could.
sir.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can hear you, Dr. Dimpy.
yeah.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for
Good.
the wonderful session.
Yeah.
I had one question, as you explained, HTA assessment, right?
Mm.
What happens in HTA assessment, and who are the main bodies functioning for HTA?
So HTA can be like anyone. So that includes sometimes private firms, like public sector undertakings, government bodies, etc. And HTAs typically includes. So HTA is not only about the pharmaceutical product. Sometimes it could be for medical devices, etc. So what we will be trying to understand through such assessments would be what's the exceptional value, or what's the unmet need so and so product would be addressing. So these assessments are typically made especially to include your products for a insurance coverage, or sometimes in certain government accounts to include your product. So these are increasingly being important when the products are really pricey. Then you will have to differentiate between your product which is too expensive versus a cheap drug what is already available in the market. So just to give you an example, see some of our antihypertensives which are really cheap, right? Actually, so they might also have some other indications, actually they might be used in heart failure, etc. But then the recent drugs what is coming in the market would be really pricey. So then they will have to create a value proposition model. So that is being actually increasingly being assessed with these health technology assessments. And the those group not only includes the medical experts, sometimes it includes mm, I mean someone from the social scientist, health economists, etc.
And sir, like, in what phase of life cycle management will we be doing this HT assessment?
Mostly these are done like actually when the drug is like actually see, you could do it very early also to understand, but at a usually it is done at a point where you are trying to get an entry, so that would be like post in the post marketing phase only. but but again, like actually it depends, like if you have that like actually visibility, if you know the right stakeholders, etc., you might also be doing. But then like actually it is primarily in the post marketing phase of.
So, sir, whenever we are developing a drug, we are
Hmm.
deciding the payers from before during the earlier phases. Like India, there will be insurance companies and government.
Yeah, so that's very important. That's also like actually that decides the fate, like see, I will also tell you. See, these HT assessments are like widely used in the Western world because those are like actually proper insurance-driven markets. Like, but in our country, like we have the insurance segment like for a very brief set of people only, and majority of us like have to pay out of our pocket. So accordingly, these things becomes important while deciding like where it should be applied. And this would the product launch also depends on that. That was my point. So for example, mm, when an organization is trying to launch a product, they might consider, for example, countries like developing countries or countries like India, uh, not at the beginning or not in the wave one. They will park it for some time because they know here the patient have to pay out of their pocket, and it will also be a costly affair for them, like to invest a lot on the promotions, etc. But in the other countries, if they see a good value, if they have a good value proposition, it helps them to place the product quickly and get it reimbursed as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So just to inform you, you might have a see, I have talked about the medical affairs perspective primarily in generating this evidence, especially in the clinical research. But you might also have in the course of in the due course of, I mean, this certification program, you might get to hear from someone else also on the same topic, like with a different perspective, so that actually will help you to understand it little better.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any queries, or like you could also ask like about some of the previous sessions as well. If you have any queries based on the previous sessions as well, you can inquire, because we have another 8 to 10 minutes left. If no queries, someone can also share the feedback, like is it really helping you, like are you getting to learn something new, whether like is it prompting you to look for a career in medical affairs, etc. If anyone can unmute and say, that would also help.
Uh, I have one query. It's a very
Yeah,
basic and very naive because I'm very
yeah,
new to this.
yeah,
Like once in the beginning, you started regarding the protocol development.
yeah.
So wanted to know that that we the medical efforts itself develop a protocol, or there will be help from clinical research team or clinical trial team or from the external source.
Yeah, so see, it's not a like actually protocol is like the lifeline of the clinical development. So
Yes.
it's not actually one team's work, But obviously, as a medical affairs and coming with their extensive medical knowledge, they would be the key contributors. And of course, a protocol might include lot of aspects like on the conduct of the trial as well. So where you will need like lot of input from the clinical operations team. Then again like there would be a lot which are related to the regulatory, the safety aspect. So we we will have like a team, I would say a real multidisciplinary team working on the protocol. But the ones who could bring in lot of innovations, lot of insightful suggestions, it would be the medical affairs, because they are the ones who are connecting with the experts in that segment, from the very early on.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So I can also tell you an example, because the time per, permits.
Yes.
So recently, I was approaching a leading pulmonologist for to review a draft protocol outline. So I mean the protocol was almost set, and it was ready to to be finalized. It was in that stage, but one of the exclusion criteria, this particular pulmonologist really challenged us. So first initially, see, we had discussed the same with at least 20 experts who did not find any real challenge. They all agree like, okay, we will have no issues with the set inclusion exclusion criteria. But one pulmonologist uh, from Nagpur told us like, okay, no, no, this particular inclusion criteria is not going to work with Indian patients. Then he gave us substantial evidence as well, like why is it like important to rephrase or change that particular exclusion criteria to, to accommodate, to include certain set of patients. So even though this was in the last minute, we had a protocol review meeting which discussed this suggestion, and then got it incorporated into the trial protocol. So it would have been disastrous, if we miss this, then again we will need to go for major protocol amendments. It would have been a very timely affair as well. So time is currency, especially when you are doing these particular trials.
Thank you.
So sorry for avoiding the specific details, just because these are, yeah. So I just wanted to ask, Alina itself, so are you finding these sessions useful, or what's your general feedback? Like, is it generating certain interest about the medical affairs, etc.? Can you comment?
Yes, it's very useful for me because currently I am in this profile itself. So
Okay.
I'm budding my career in this medical affairs itself. But due to,
Okay.
I guess, like it's my personal experience that being in a limited, because I have a limited source over here
Hmm.
to have a more into the depth into the medical affairs. I mean, as the institution, as the organization is small, so we don't
Okay.
have that much of clinical trial experts or too much of medical affairs things
Hmm.
what actually do. So because of that, I joined this course, and it's
Yeah.
very helpful for me. So that in case in future, if I want to shift or another organization, it will be helpful for me to understand more rather
Yeah.
than being naive over there.
Yeah. So that's actually thank you so much for sharing this valuable feedback. So actually I had worked in small organizations, as well as I have worked in really large and really big multinational organizations. So in the present organization where I work, we have a separate team of medical experts to separate the clinical to support the clinical development program. In fact, not only one team, there are multiple medical teams, again with a lot of subdivisions working to support the clinical development programs along with the medical affairs. And depending on the need, in certain therapy area, medical affairs also parallelly working from the very early on as well. I'm sure, like actually,
Okay, yeah.
during the course of your career, you will have many such opportunities to be part of. I mean, to engage very early on the trials as well.
Yes, yes. Yeah, thank you.
So, if no queries, I would say, like thank you so much for your patient listening. You can, if you have any queries, mm, please write to me. You can reach through the team, like I mean the organizers. Like if you have any queries, please do reach out, and that will also help us, like to look into such queries. Okay, bye bye.
Thank you so
See
much,
you.
doctor. Thanks for
Yeah,
the session. Good day, sir.
thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the session.